Hi everyone, thanks for listening if you're tuning in, and I just wanted to speak this week about that little encapsulating paragraph of "Am I an addict?" ? Right? And I remember when I first heard the word addict and I associated that with lots of different things, maybe from what I'd watched on telly, what I'd been told before, and my idea of that, what that looked like, was very different to what I believed I was at the time. So, there was a lot of stuff going on at the beginning. And like I told you before, I was in treatment. So I was given the opportunity with professionals to really talk about an evidence-based reflection, to talk about my experience, what I'd experienced in the past, how I'd behaved, my thought patterns, and really write down what happened and then ask myself, did it have a pattern? Was there a regular occurrence? Were there times that I could look at and start with, I had this intention of not doing it that day or that time, and by the time the day had ended, or even an hour in some cases, I got to the end and I was doing it, even against my will, or my own thought pattern of not wanting to do it. So I think this is a really important thing to talk about, and I'll talk about my experience because I'm not a professional, but I know that it helps, so I'm willing to do it. So a lot at the beginning, I was saying, why me? I was very confused about how I'd come into this place of, a treatment facility. Yet I've been wrapped around a lot of people my own age that were doing the same, or even in some cases worse than me. But why this happened to me, I was very caught up in that. I believed that I was being punished, that I'd done something really, really bad in life to warrant me ending up there. And I certainly didn't think that I fitted the criteria. So when I looked around me, the people that I was surrounded by, and keeping their confidentiality, there were different versions of addiction in front of me, or alcoholism. There were those around me that maybe done it on weekends and binge. There was those that done it really severely, like me, every day. But there were those that still had somewhere to live, maybe a job. And there were others that had lost all of that and that were currently homeless, or sofa surfing, or living in different houses, sometimes, drug dens and stuff like that. So I was constantly looking around the room going, well, I can find someone that's worse than me, so surely I'm not that bad. And I remember, I've said before, people were trying to come to me and tell me that things were not going well, but I was reluctant, and I was point blank refusing really to listen to anyone. And when I think about that now, I generally believe that I had to separate reality and fantasy to survive in them moments. When I was doing what I was doing so often, and really kind of putting in my body these toxins every single day, I don't believe the mind and the soul can really survive in that. I think it needs to kind of like disassociate. So I think for me, it was when I had people sitting in front of me begging me to look at the reality of what I was in. I was losing my job. I wasn't working. I was stuck in a room by myself. My finances were in a terrible state. My family were all worried about me. No one was really sleeping or relaxing. People were reluctant to invite me out to events because they were worried about encouraging me. And then they'd have the output of me kind of being really angry that I wasn't invited and not knowing what to do. Friendships were getting destroyed. Relationships were non-existent by this point. But, there were definitely lots of people around me that taken a step back, and rightly so, and I really admire family members and, partners and friends, and even the workforce, that sometimes reluctantly have to stand back in their moments and watch this destruction happen in front of them. It must be chilling, and I really recognise that. But I think it's really important that if you are in a space where you feel like, I don't know if this is true or not, writing things down on paper really helped me. And I began by writing down all the things that happened to me when I was using. So it would be like, I went out to this party, I swore I wasn't going to do it that day, but on the way there, I ended up going to the dealers, picking up and then doing it in the car before I arrived. Or, I woke up in the morning swearing this, not again, I will not do this today, but by 10 a.m, you know, I'm already calling someone, asking them to drop off a substance, you know, or not even knowing in the end, like me, that I was drinking alcohol and hiding it under my bed. And the reason why I think I was doing what I was doing was a cycle of pain, the anxiety in the mornings, you know, when I came to, and the body's reaction, the physical reaction, the mental, you know, reaction of not having these substances in our body. And the brain's such a clever mechanism, right? It almost recognized that if it sent these messages out that I wasn't getting what I needed, it would literally like torture me until I would go out and replace it, you know, and that cycle would begin again. But I really think if and I know it's really hard, that maybe if you live with people, you don't want that information on paper necessarily. Maybe you can write on your notes on your phone, or maybe you can go and see someone in the community that you trust, a doctor, a professional, and kind of really speak about the things and evidence what happened, evidence from start to finish. You know, when I went out, or when I said I didn't want to do it, did I do it anyway? You know, and then look for the patterns and the evidence and the history right in front of you to get an idea of what it's been like. And then if you really want a shock, write down the amount of money that you spent, or the limits you went to, you know, to go and get that money, or the things you've done that you're ashamed of to make sure you had the money to pay for it. You know, and if you're in a different situation, well, maybe you've kept your job, or your relationship is still there, which I'm quite amazed by. You know, look at, how does your boss feel right now? Is your boss giving you, you know, really good feedback? You know, are your co-workers really happy with your commitment? You know, are you hiding things? Are you keeping things to yourself? Are you avoiding certain situations because you don't want to socialise, that you want to isolate, you'd rather be on your own? You know, how is your physical presence? Are you breathing well? Do you find you have high anxiety? You know, do you have a racing mind a lot? You know, all these things are not necessarily in conjunction with addiction, but they're definitely all related. So if you're experiencing these things, you know, and you've got family members that you think they're getting on your back all the time, and it's really, what I will say is that it can feel really annoying to an addict when someone who does the same thing then approaches them and says, well, I'm doing it, but it doesn't affect anyone, but you can't do it. And although the person approaching them is probably absolutely right in what they're saying, an addict, well, I know me, my response was, if I could get an out and use it as an excuse to argue with you, you know, I'll use it. So sometimes it does matter about the person who's approaching and having that conversation, you know. And if you're making excuses all the time, and can you trust your mind? Like, have you ever experienced going somewhere and aiming for a certain location, but for some reason you divert and you end up going past the house or meeting people that you didn't expect to meet, that you know will have drink and drugs on them, you know, and you end up using when you're with them? There's so many times that I can evidence, you know, where I was going one way, but when I'll just stop there, I'll just pop in and see them. And I would have told you intentionally that I had the right, you know, idea about it, that I planned to just go and visit my friends or visit that person. In my head, I'd make up this kind of idea that, oh, I'll pop in, I haven't seen them for ages, you know, I must pop into that venue and see them, you know, telling myself that what I was doing is a really good idea. And then lo and behold, the minute I get there, I know damn well there's going to be drink and drugs available, and then I use, and then I don't go to the place I was supposed to go to. I let my commitments go, and the cycle starts again. So those are the things that I really want to encourage you to do, is to seek out support, seek out support groups or professionals, GPs. Go to someone and ask for that guidance, because doing this alone, trying to figure this stuff out yourself, is really difficult. And also, what I want to put across is, it's great on social media that I'm talking, right? It's great that you're hearing me, but you don't know me. You have no idea if I'm really telling the truth, if I'm really clean and sober. Unless you're in my circles or around me, seeing me regularly, this could be a complete lie. So I really think it's important to support yourself with social media, but also go out and get into some real life social groups, professionals, get that physical support, you know, and see if the people that you are around are doing what they say they're doing, because that makes a hell of a difference, you know. And I know it's quite controversial, but I really feel like this needs to be said, because Social media has its place. There's lots of people doing different things. I have no opinion on what everyone else wants to do or how they want to get the support. That's entirely up to the individual. If you want to know how I done it through a 12-step program, and I've stayed in that consistently the last 20 years. I do it because it benefits me, and I see how it's changed my life. It's not for everyone, but for me it's really worked. And I can say that, you know, that if you want to go and try it, give it a go, please. It's been worth so much to me. But if it's somewhere else you need to go, another professional, seek it out. See if it works. Give yourself the opportunity. Just give yourself 6 months, a year. So I'll just try it. And if it doesn't work, I'll leave. You know, but it's always best, I believe, to have a chance of trying something first and then saying it didn't work for this reason or that reason, rather than not trying it at all and living with regret. So I hope that helps you all. I hope that's given you some sort of indication. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. I am getting questions sent to me and I will come back on them when I get some time. But thanks for listening.